Hello Admirals and welcome to my channel where I talk about Battlefleet Gothic, the spaceship game set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. So in my previous video I talked about fleet tactics and I talked about the general ones that the different official factions use. Each ship and each fleet is very much their own thing. They are very narrative and they operate in very different ways. Each fleet has a different flavour. I get often though questions about, well, I'm starting this fleet, Tom. What do you recommend? What's the point limit you recommend? How many ships do I need, and things like that. So in this next series of videos, I'm going to go into a little bit more faction focused, and I'm going to look at a standard kind of generic take all comers kind of fleet for each of the official factions, and I'm going to go up to 1,500 points. That's typically the most you want to go to with Battlefleet Gothic. That's 1,500 points is kind of that fleet limit where it operates quite good. You can get a good amount of cruisers and frigates and a battleship in there for that, which is great. And I get asked about doing standard starter fleets, what you would recommend. So I'm going to start off with Imperials, and I'm going to give two kind of distinct fleet lists, and I'll go into a little bit of reason why shortly. There is a couple of articles on my website called portinvictor.weebly.com. Not only myself, but others have written talking about tactics and different starter fleets and things like that. One of the main community members, Horizon, has written a lot about that sort of thing. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of fleets for the Imperial to start off. So the Imperial Navy probably has the widest variety of ships in the game. Chaos probably is the other one that rivals it from that perspective. But the Imperial Fleet has a number of official fleet lists and a number of unofficial fleet lists. So you pick the fleet from that fleet list, and that goes the same for any of the fleets. It doesn't matter what faction it is, but you can play the traditional Gothic fleet. You have the Armageddon fleet, the Bastion fleet list, and the Backer fleet list, and they're all different. They have common cruisers and common themes and common battleships and things like that, but there are some differences. And there are flavors with that, and then there are unofficial fleet lists for the Imperials. Things like the Sol fleet list and things like that from Battlefleet Solar, for example. But typically, they all operate in a very similar way to the similar tactics that I mentioned in the previous video, where you want to keep your ships together and then go from there. Because they really want, it doesn't matter what fleet list you use, you really want to have mutual support. But I'm just going to talk about two standard fleet lists, which I think are a pretty good starting point for anyone. And again, 1,500 points for this. So this is your general Gothic, I want to say, fleet list. You won't go too wrong with this fleet. So I'm just going to bring it forward a little bit for you guys to see a bit better. There you go. That's a bit better for you, isn't it? So this fleet typically has one battleship and a few cruisers and a few escorts in it. This main aim is to have an Emperor battleship, which is your fleet carrier. It's the darling of the Imperial Fleet and pumps out loads of ordnance. And then you have two Lunars, which you're aiming to squadron. Then you want to put these two together for mutual support, and you can then throw out weapons battery 12 and 4 lances to each side, which is great. And then supporting them, then you have a Gothic, which has plenty of lances, which is great, and a Dominator, which gives you weapons batteries, a strong weapons battery platform, but crucially also gives you the Nova Cannon in this fleet, which lets you then play a little bit of an artillery game, long range, while you're throwing out torpedoes and ordnance at the same time. And then this is supported then by a squadron of 5 swords and a squadron of 5 cobras. And I can't count because there's a missing cobra there. Missing sword. There he is. There we go. That's better, right? And the purpose of this is you can break these up as you want, 3 and 2 or whatever, have a big squadron. But these guys can then mutually support that. And in reality, what this kind of fleet is aiming to do is to keep the Emperor at the back, protected while throwing out all the ordnance, and then doing some long range damage with its long range guns, all the while kind of moving forward, firing with your torpedoes to break up the opponent's fleet, and then and with Nova Cannon, and then hit them pretty hard with then the lance and weapons battery fire, with support then from the torpedo boats and the Cobras, which are these little guys. And support then, and your swords can do a tremendous amount of damage. This is kind of a well-rounded fleet. It has a mix of ordnance, weapons batteries, and lances. It's got that classic original Gothic fleet list. But what's good about this fleet? This is kind of your conservative fleet. If you're a little bit of a cagey wargamer, this is a good sort of starting point. You can keep your opponent at arm's length. You have a mix of both long range and short range firepower to do some damage, along with plenty of ordnance to really keep your opponent on their toes. So a good, well-rounded kind of fleet has a mix of anything. Now, if you want more of a sort of brawling fleet, a bit more aggressive fleet, then again we can move to swapping out a few things. So in this instance, you have a Retribution class battleship, supported then by a Mars battle cruiser, along then with 2 Dictators, which are your primary carriers in this fleet. The Mars does pump out, but the Dictators are going to be your main. They kind of swap out for the Emperor in this sort of scenario, and they can put out torpedoes as well. And then it's supported by a couple of light cruisers. You can either put the Lance ones in, or you can put the torpedo boats in. So I've got the torpedo boats ones there, but I also have some lances. So that's the Lance one that you can see with the giant lance on the front. I'm quite a fan of the Lance version, to be perfectly honest. Coupling this with the swords I showed you earlier is a really nice little tactic. But you have 2 of those, and they allow good maneuverability with a little bit of weapons and plenty of torpedoes as well. And then you have 5 Cobras as well at the back, which then also provides that sort of ordnance platform. So in this, as well as the Mars also has a Nova Cannon on it, so you have that long range firepower. So the aim is to kind of use the Dictators to back, protect with ordnance, while your Retribution, your Mars, and your Dauntlesses kind of get in amongst it. You can also swap out the 2 Dauntlesses maybe for another cruiser or another squadron of escorts. But this is kind of more an aggressive fleet, I would say. But both fleets work. It really does depend. There's no wrong answers with Battlefleet Gothic. It really does come down to how you feel and how you kind of play. So obviously there are plenty of other lists and things like that you can go on, but these are good 2 1500 point lists that are well rounded, pretty balanced, can quite happily take on pretty much every other fleet in the game and do relatively well. Obviously you can tailor fleets to match against your opponent, but if you don't know who you're playing against and you're not sure who you might be playing, if you're playing in a tournament for example, then this is a kind of a nice well-rounded kind of fleet for you all to play. So there you have it, Admirals. 2 fleet lists at 1500 points that play to 2 different styles. One's a bit more conservative, one's a bit more aggressive. There's no wrong answers in the Imperial Fleet. They're a jack-of-all-trades fleet, and you can trade in and out things, certainly with all of their ships. So if you don't really think 2 Lunas are going to work, and you can throw in a Mars instead, great. If you think, oh, I'm not so confident on the Gothic, maybe you want to bring that out and put maybe a Lunar in or something like that. I'm a big fan of the Lance Dauntlesses coupled with the escorts moving around. They're quick and nimble and really good at maneuverability. And don't ever not consider the other battle cruisers and things like that, especially the Overlord against Eldar, for example. Taking maybe the Mars out and putting the Overlord in would be a great change. If you're playing against more Eldar kind of fleets, then putting in a Tyrant that can reach out and hit at a longer range is also a good option instead of, say, the Dominator. So it's the wonderful thing about the Imperial Fleet. They are very varied. They can mix and match really nicely. But there you have it, 2 sort of
all kind of fleets for you guys to try out, and I'll be interested to know how you go with them in the future. Low model count, as always, in Battlefleet Gothic, which is great. And if you have any fleet lists or ship suggestions, please put them in the comments. I'd love to hear what's worked for you in the Imperial fleets. And moving forward, I hope to hear the same with all the different fleets, what's worked for you guys and gals in your fleet games. So yeah, check them in the comments. Until then, Admirals, I will see you soon. And I think I'm going to do Chaos next. Got to do Chaos, right? So yeah.